Welcome back, gang. It's Deltia from DeltiasGaming.com, your Templar fanboy, and I'm back with a build that I've been showing off on stream all week. Stamina Templar. We brought it back, called the Harvester, and I want to explain what I'm doing, what I'm using, and why. So we're going over skills, gear, champion points, leveling, everything you need to know about Stamina Templar. And believe me when I tell you, they're still strong, still fun to play. So if you want to know how I play it, stay tuned. Alright, it's me, Armbar. I can't believe I got that name. And a couple things I want to talk to you about the Stamina Templar. So basically, should you play this build? Now, is this the absolute best way to play a Stamina Templar? I don't know. The way I've designed it is for you to be really tanky, really effective in a group or solo, and provide a lot of damage and utility. So if that kind of playstyle interests you, pick this up. Also going to go through a lot of different options in terms of skill and gear choices because there's a lot of flexibility in Elder Scrolls Online, specifically PvP. Now you have asylum weapons, you have master weapons that are super powerful, great crafted sets, open world sets. So it's a lot of things that you need to factor into how you specifically play, and I firmly believe you can modify this to fit your play style. Stamplars are still amazing. Okay, so we're on the Stam Templar, and basically you can see I have a lot of max stats, max stamina, so that's kind of what we're going for. And the reason why I think what the Stamina Templar shines at specifically is this ability, Power of the Light. Power of the Light, what it does is basically has a maximum ceiling of damage that copies that damage and reflects it back on the enemy. So essentially what you have to do is basically build this damage up after 6 seconds, and then if they don't cleanse it or anything else, don't die, boom, it pops off and blows up. The reason this is so effective is because it can't be dodged, it can't be cloaked, it can't be blocked. So in the game nowadays, it's basically everyone running around heavy armor because it's so effective. This kills people and nukes those heavy armor things. So that's why I like this build. And this is the skill that we focused on for this entire build. With that being said, the maximum copy damage scales off of our max stamina specifically. So we're going to go with sets that really benefit max stamina. So we're going to use a two-hander primarily. And I like two-hander because you have the crit rush, you have a gap closer. Now, a couple things have changed with two-hander. So, specifically cleave, you can see I don't even have this ability to even take it morph, but I want to show you something. If we go into our inventory browser, and we go to master here, and we look at the master's greatsword, increase the direct damage of cleave by 1,500 for each enemy hit, up to a maximum 9,000. Essentially, what it makes two-handers almost like Steel Tornado dual wield. They're incredible. The more people around, obviously there's a cap on it, but now the game has a lot of different ways to play. So if you want to go the more AoE route with your two-hander, you can. You don't have to pick up dual wield. Basically, you just drop your gap closer. If you want to go more like the basically killing one player over and over and over solo build, kind of like what I have this set up for, you pick up the asylum weapon. When you deal damage with reverse slash, you grant up to 15 ultimate based on how much damage, execute damage you do. So you need, it's around, I think 35% is when this starts kicking in, so I wouldn't execute people at 100% like I'm seeing. But the asylum weapons are actually pretty easy to get. This is the perfected one, but you don't have to get that. You can see it's not that much different than just the normal one. And you can do that on normal, get it, and you can even do like 3 or 4 people can get it done. As you can see, the Maelstrom weapon can still be effective if you use crit charge, but basically it's going to be centered around what your weapon does. So for me, I'm going to use the Asylum, going for just nuking one player over and over. So if I was going to use the Masters, I would drop crit rush, put cleave, morph it into brawler. Since I don't have one, not going for that, I'm going to use crit rush as a gap closer. Now, gap closers aren't essentially needed. This is a morph, or this is a slot that you could change in and out. The thing about gap closers is it's minimum range. So if you're right on top of a target, it's basically a wasted skill. So that's what you need to be aware of with this. Now, crits always, and it hits really, really hard. The further away you are, the harder it hits. So the thing I would recommend doing is popping forward momentum first. So forward momentum, you see a lot of people using this now instead of rally because most people are in heavy armor. What's changed is the medium armor skill evasion. You used to be able to use this in heavy armor 5 pieces or more. Not so fast. 5 pieces of medium or more. So the way heavy armor gets around being immobilized, the stamina route is through forward momentum. Yes, you lose the burst heal, but we can get away with not having so much heals. So the trick is popping this, then rushing in. Now, before that happens, you're probably going to want to put a Power of a Light on someone, as you can see. It's really, really good solo. Obviously, nukes down heavy armor targets. It's great against Nightblades. They can't cloak it off. And it provides that minor fracture and breach, so you're going to hit harder against the target. It's also a Dawn's Wrath ability, so you can see you're going to actually build up ultimate faster. I just love this ability, and it marks targets. So if you're in a group of 4, 5, 6 people, and you put this on someone, and you go, hey, hit that target, they know exactly who to beat on. And the main reason I like Stamina Templar over, say, a Warden or a Dragon Knight for this type of playstyle is I'm not a big fan of using Uppercut, Dizzying Swing. It's a very, very effective skill. Don't get me wrong. Hits hard, stuns, great. I'm just not a fan of it. So if you like that, I would put that here on Crit Rush because it is an on-demand stun, which is very, very helpful. But the way I've built it is to not focus so much on the stuns, since my counterpart Gil usually is a Nightblade, Mass Hysteria. He can drop block and we can just open him up and nuke him. So I go with Biting Jabs. Biting Jabs is your main spammable damage ability. It's a snare, which is super, super useful. Yes, it grants you the crit, which is nice, but that snare is so, so effective for just locking people into place. It also fulfills the spot of Piercing Spear, so having one Adric Spear ability on our bar is very, very important for max crit, and crit is still important in PvP. And then the last active skill that we're going to use is really going to depend on your playstyle. Executioner is very effective for killing one target. So I kind of built this guy for solo first. And when I say solo first is I like to have my build so they can play independently of a healer or someone else. Because if you're effective independently of a healer or someone else, you're going to be really effective when you have one. So Executioner with Power of Light really makes this build geared towards nuking down one target. You change that morph to Reverse Slice for more splash AoE damage. You could drop this, put Brawler on here. Boom, you have a great AoE build. The way we center our stunning is we have an ability on our back bar, but really Dawnbreaker of Smiting. You know, it's the go-to standard, and it has seen a nerf because you can dodge it and avoid a little bit of the damage, but it's just amazing because of the physical damage. It's a cone, so it's AoE and single target. The damage is great, and the stun. Now, for pure burst, one could make an argument that Crescent Sweep actually hits harder. Now, you look at the tooltip, that doesn't seem the case, right? But enemies in front of you take 66% more initial damage. Also, Burning Light can proc off of this. Yes, it's 25% lower chance, but for absolute pure burst, Crescent Sweep is incredible. And if you don't like using Biting Jabs, you put your Adric Spear ability on here, you swap it in, and if you want to do Dizzying Swing for on-demand stun, great. A lot of flexibility, but for the way I play and the gear that I have right now, this is a real simple setup that works for me. You got your gap closer for mobility. You got your actual immunity to snares and immobilizations right here. You got your basically nuke down one target or putting pressure on a heavy armor player. You have your spammable ability, and then once someone reaches around 35% health, you have your execute, where you're going to want to spam that as many times as it takes to get them down. And then your ultimate. That's simply what you use offensively on the 2H. Sword and board, baby. You know I love me some sword and board. All my builds have it. You probably comment, why does he always have sword and board? Dude, spell shield, spell wall. Now this seen a little nerf because the ultimate cost is a little bit more. But if you read it, 6.3, I think it's almost around 7 when it's fully max. Allowing you to block automatically at no cost and reflects projectiles. That is absolutely absurd. So you're blocking, which prevents a lot of stuns, not all of them, but it does prevent a lot of stuns. So the way to use this is, obviously if you're getting pressured at range, you're about to die, so on. But what you can do is you hit the spell wall, and then you bar swap to your 2H. Then you rip off a fully charged heavy attack or two. So that's how I get away with surviving when I'm out of stamina, is I pop this, I know I'm not going to be stunned by probably 75% of the crowd control effects in the game. I can rip off a fully charged heavy, do damage, take less damage, and still remain to put pressure on the opponent. So that's really the only reason we're using sword and board. That, and it gives us an extra gear slot. But really it's just mainly have a survivability ultimate. So front bar, damage. Back bar, stun, survivability. It's pretty simple. Now, the class skills that you're going to want to focus on. You're going to see that this build relies actually a lot on Magicka, which is the reason we went with the gear set that we did. The two skills you're going to want fundamentally, Restoring Light is Restoring Focus. This thing is absolutely incredible. Lays down a rune, low-cost magic, and that when you leave the rune, you have 8 seconds of the buff. So even if you cast it and charge in, you're still going to have 8 seconds of it. Major Resolve, Major Ward. Minor Vitality, Minor Protection. And it costs hardly nothing. It's absolutely incredible. We don't need channel focus, so because we're not relying so much on magic, so this morph fits the build, making you incredibly tanky. Is it as tanky as a Warden? I don't know, but it's pretty close because of this ability. Extended Ritual. You guys know I keep ranting and raving about this. Probably my favorite Templar ability in the game right now, since Repentance has been nerfed. It allows you to remove harmful effects. Yes, it has the synergy. Yes, it has the heal over time, but it's really that removal of harmful effects that allows you to escape and not have to heal so much. Since we're not using Rally as a burst heal, we're going to need to rely on this to remove harmful effects, because we're just not going to out-heal stuff anymore. We don't have that major mending, we don't have Rally, but we do have a way to get rid of harmful effects. 4,100 magic cost in this gear. So you can see, once again, we're relying on a lot of magic, primarily because we're going to use this frequently. So I wouldn't necessarily cleanse unless you have 5 effects on you. That could be poisons, poison injection, someone shooting you with the bow, siege, whatever. If you don't have add-ons, you're going to know when you're not healing very much if you have a lot of negative effects on you. That's when I would use this. Like I talked about, Repentance, the Harvester, was based off of this skill specifically, still really powerful. What's happened is that all the stamina doesn't go to everyone, it just goes to you. But the health still goes to everyone. So I still think it's a really, really useful skill, because it's just healing off of corpses. What it allows you to do, whether you're leveling or PvPing, is just really be offensively focused, because you know if you nuke down one player, you got a powerful heal right around the corner with Repentance, and for you and your group. So that's why we've kind of gone away from actually even having healers, is because if we're killing stuff, we're healing. And then we have our on-demand stun. Now, a couple things have changed also with stunning as a Templar. Previous builds I relied on Spear Shard, because the Morph Luminous Spear would actually drop block. It no longer does that now. So Templar, by default, doesn't have a real efficient way of dropping block. So it's, in dueling and stuff like that, it's really hard to get around that, because usually I just threw a spear, dropped their block, and I would burst them down. So that's kind of why I switched to Power of a Light, more focused, is because, fine, you want to block? I have a way to deal with it. It used to be I could stun you. Well, I can still stun you with Binding Javelin, but the fact is this thing, you can be blocked, it can be reflected, and it can be resorbed. So it has a lot of counterplay to it. So yes, it's a useful stun. Yes, it's not the best stun in the game, but it's still effective, and it gives you some range, so you can still take down people. But if you put a Power of a Light on someone, chuck this, crit rush in, and it all hits at the same time, you're going to put some pressure on somebody. Plus, once again, passively, it feels our Piercing Spear passive, so it makes it really useful. Then we have our on-demand heal. No-brainer. Assault and Support. You get this pretty early nowadays. Hell, take a couple of resources and you got a couple hours. So Resolving Vigor, heal over time. Something to note about Resolving Vigor is basically morphs don't stack anymore, just the heals do. So it used to be before, you could have like 1 Resolving Vigor on you. Well, now if you have 4 stand builds all using it, you're getting all those heals. So there's really no point in using Echoing Vigor for this particular build, since morph stacking isn't really a thing anymore. So that's why I went with Resolving, because I do like to play this guy kind of like an off tank or an off DPS, whatever you want to call it. And that's our simple skill setup. So on the back bar, you're primarily going to want to have your Restoring Focus down, your Ritual, Vigor before you charge in, using Javelin as your stun mechanic, your oh crap button to spell wall, and then you see them corpses, start zapping them. Next up, we have gear. So I already kind of hinted and talked about the weapon choices. So really your build is going to center around what you're using as your two-hander. Asylum, it's going to be really focused on bursting down one player, getting a lot of ultimate. Masters, it's going to be focused on AoE damage and taking on larger groups. VMA, it's going to be focused on that crit rush and charging in. From what Gil tells me, Nirnhone seems to be the most damage-producing trait that you can have on your primary damage bar. So that's what I would go with Nirnhone. So you can see that I used the new currency here, what is it called? Transmute Stones, to change that. So that's been really, really effective. Now you see the enchant on here. You can still use it and also get the benefit of your discipline / set. So you see you can use an enchant and you can still get the one piece bonus. Before you couldn't. You could get one or the other. Or a poison. So poison's still really effective, but Undead and Daedra, it's a prismatic enchant on the weapon is what you do. This thing hits really, really, really hard. And the reason I go with it, obviously its burst potential is fantastic, though it's Undead and Daedra. But the thing is, a lot of people are vampires, specifically healers, magic builds. Reason why Elusive Miss is so effective to deal with immobilizations and getting around. So it goes with that premise of dealing damage to those heavy armor tank boogers like me on my healer. That's why I use this. So that's our one piece. Our main 5-piece, no surprise, Shacklebreaker. Love it, love it, love it, love it. Now, there's a lot of options to run, and that's what I'm really enjoying the game, is that there's not like one set you have to run. It's really dependent on your build. So my build focuses on more utility, not just damage. It focuses on more power of the light, so maximum stamina is very effective. Max magic is also really effective for me since I'm going to be using cleanses a lot in my ritual. There's a lot of other sets that are effective, so we're just going to go over one, which is 7th Legion. I used it about a year ago, so y'all can't say that I didn't use this. Now, you've seen this come up in popularity. Weapon damage, health recovery, weapon critical. What makes this set so effective is that 10% chance to proc weapon damage can happen multiple times. It doesn't have a cooldown. So 100 people are beating on you, you could get massive healed. Now that heal cannot crit. That heal is cut in half in Cyrodiil, but you can amplify it somewhat, but it's really, really helpful. The weapon damage 500 is phenomenal. The thing about it is, though, that we're focused on max stamina more than weapon damage. Like a Dragon Knight, I think, would be better with weapon damage. That's my opinion. Still a really fantastic set. Another set people are using that they find really effective is the Fury set. So if you're taking on a lot of people and you're getting hit and you're getting crit a lot, this thing can ramp up in damage to like just crazy weapon damage. So it just depends on what you want to do. I like the versatility and the ability to look cool. Ebon Shadow armor. I mean, come on, it looks amazing. You look good, you play good. And it's just a set that I can show people that, look, you can be really good in the game and really effective. I'm not the best PvPer, but I can be effective using crafted gear. So I think the game's at a healthy point when you have a lot of different options and each of them are effective in different ways. Monster Helms. There is tons and tons of options in Monster Helm land. So I'm going to go over what I think are my top 3 or 4. Number 1 is Troll King. Now, I would have liked us to have this infused. I'm running 5 heavy, 2 medium. The reason I run 5 heavy is obviously the passives are amazing and you lose little damage in comparison to other patches, but survivability is key. If you can't survive, you're not doing damage. His medium is just so squishy. It really has little ways to deal with just taking hits. So Troll King is how I get around not using a defensive set. And the reason why it heals, boom, it's going to proc that health recovery. People don't think health recovery is very good, and I don't think they understand how the game works, and that health recovery is not a heal, so it's not cut in half by Battle Spirit. So when this thing procs, yes, it's health recovery, that sounds silly, but on an orc, and especially if I use a food that I'm going to show you later on, you are just staggeringly hard to kill. Also, it helps out other players. So it's great both solo for survivability. It's also great utility in a group. It's a really good all-around set if no one's running and you want like really focus on survivability. Boom, put the sucker on. It's great. You just want to absolutely nuke people down. Y'all know what to do. Salines. Salines is still incredible. Look at that tooltip. It happens every 4 seconds. So there is some counterplay to it. You know, it can be dodged, it can be avoided easily. And that's good because you don't want a set that everyone just mandatorily has to use. But Salines is incredibly effective still in the game. And I'd recommend using it if you have someone in Troll King or you have a dedicated healer, something like that. Very, very effective, though I go more of the tanky off-tank role. Another set people don't use, but Slime Crawl is actually decent. Minor Berserk at all times. That's an advantage the Warden has over a Templar and basically every other class, is that it gets Minor Berserk. Now, if you don't have a healer running Combat Prayer, that's a huge advantage the Warden has over you. So, yes, you have to use a 2-piece to get that, but it is at all times, making it a viable thing since you're not relying on a proc. And the old standard monster helm that a lot of people are coming back to is Bloodspawn. So Bloodspawn with this build fits in really, really well because once that armor and spell resistance procs, you're pretty much going to be at hard cap. So you're going to be very, very hard to kill. It gives you stamina recovery. Hey, more recovery, that's always good. And when you take damage, you can generate ultimate. So if we're using Asylum weapon as well, along with this, we're going to have a lot of ultimate potential. So not only does it give us defensive stats, gives us recovery, but that ultimate can be used offensively or defensively. So if someone's maybe running Trollking and you still want to be a little bit flexible, throw on Bloodspawn. Salines, you want to nuke people down, or Trollking if you want more group utility. Okay, that comes to our secondary sets to what we're going to use. Now, what I saw, Cody PvP, excellent PvP, are great builds. And I kind of took inspiration from his Warden. I like to play the Stamina Templar better. Didn't fit the playstyle for me with the Warden. So some tip that he had was running agility. It's really, really nice because it gives you tons of max stats, weapon damage. And then Death's Wind, of all things, on my back bar. I'm like, Death's Wind, really? Well, that physical resistance on our back bar makes us tremendously tanky. So you can see if I put my rune down, I'm at 26 and 27,000. Now you're wearing Bloodspawn on top of that, you're almost at 33,000. So you can see that this is a really, really powerful combination. Now I went with Powered on my back bar. That stat will get cut in half in Cyrodiil. And then Nirnhone on my shield. So it's really just when I'm on my back bar, I get those Vigors and I get Repentance. That's why I put Powered on this trait. Now, you can also do something else with this. You can see how flexible these builds are now? I just love it. I really do. Is kind of out of the box thing. If you want to do the Troll King and you still want to do some more utility, since you have Vigor on your back bar, it's an assault ability, you run 3 jewelry pieces, sword, and board. So when you cast Vigor, you and or 3 other targets around you will get increased weapon and spell damage. So it's actually really, really good to run this kind of like as a tank, basically in battlegrounds, because it's capped at 4 players, but if you're nearby each other, that 164 added up by 4 people, and all the buffs and passives and everything else that apply to it adds up to a tremendous 5-piece for group play. But you will sacrifice some damage, right? You're not going to have the weapon damage. You will have the max health, so it makes you more tanky, and you won't have nearly as much stamina. Just depends. And the flexibility of these builds now and what's useful is really, really making me excited about Elder Scrolls Online. And then if I haven't talked about it before, crit, I really think running, you can see I have tons and tons of crit resistance. So at least 5 pieces of impenetrable, and then maybe 1 infuse or 2, or maybe 1 infuse and a well fitted. Try to find what fits your playstyle as well. I don't do a whole lot of dodge rolls, so the well fitted isn't really necessary for me, though it can come in handy. But you need at least 5 impenetrable if you can, and then all weapon damage enchants. That covers gear, I think. Let's move on to CPZ. Champion points. Thing I'll say about champion points is you need to experiment, right? There's no, I don't think, one size fits all. This is the absolute best. So this is what I've came up with, and I think this is avoiding jump points. I could be wrong, but Warlord, reduce the cost of break free. That's going to save your stamina. Really, really important. Sprinter, you'll see 12%. That's actually quite a lot. And with Orc, using immovability potions, I get away. Getting away, surviving, putting a forward camp down if you're in Cyrodiil is very, very important. And this 50 right here does really, really well for me. Sustain, I go tons into Mooncalf. Now you can see, you really hit diminishing returns the higher you go. So you could almost get a lot of benefit just doing 50 points in here. So I was still experimenting with that to see what I like. Arcanist, I actually do like a lot of magic recovery. It's helpful when I'm using Cleanse quite a bit, getting debuffed. So it makes sense to me to put some points into there. Healthy, yes, health recovery actually does work and it is effective. So even that 5% Troll King procs, I'm going to show you this gold food that I'm using. Dude, you're really hard to kill. Tenacity, Fully charged heavy attacks are the name of the game, especially with the two-hander, because there's a passive in there that allows for 10% increased damage after a fully charged heavy. Also, it's a great way to put pressure on someone, but also get your resources back. Proc those enchants. You can't beat it. And I tell people, like I'm playing with them, I see them just dancing around, they don't know what to do. Fully charged heavy attack. What's going to happen? It's going to go off and you don't hit anything. Well, at least you're doing something. So it's incredibly important to focus on that. And then tumbling. So reduce the cost of roll dodge. I am going to roll dodge some, not a ton, but it is effective. I don't have any in, you'll see Shadow Ward, reduce the cost of blocking. I don't block a whole lot. And then I do have my free block, my ultimate. So this isn't something that I've focused on, though. Depending on your playstyle, you might put some points in here. Blue Tree, the Apprentice, I don't have any. An option is to put Blessed in here if you wanted to your Vigorous to hit hard, but you're taking away a lot of offensive potential any points you dip into here. Moving over to the Atronach, Master at Arm increases your damage with direct damage attacks, and then increases your damage with lighter heavy attacks. You should be weaving in between attacks, even in PvP. It's going to proc weapon enchants, some passives, it's going to hit hard, it's free damage. And then the fully charged heavy attack here and there. Makes it really, really, really useful. So light and heavy attacks for two-handed. Love it. Moving over. Now, this is kind of what Gil uses, so that's kind of what I want to do. And kind of avoiding diminishing returns. Mighty, a lot of points into here. A lot of points into physical penetration. Crit is actually quite useful because you can see its damage and healing abilities. So that's going to impact your repentance heals, a lot of different things. So don't avoid crit altogether. Thaumaturge, damage over time effects, jabs. These things will increase your damage. So you don't have to just put 100 points into Mighty and let it go. Though, hey, if you need a place to start, that's where I would go. Moving over to the red, 38 points in resistance. Crit resistance gives me 1,000. So that's a good investment for PvP, especially if you're not running 5 or more crit pieces like Impenetrable. Ironclad, reduce damage taken against direct damage effects. Moving over here, and you can see some of these have changed. So Hardy, Elemental Defender, and Thick Skin are roughly almost the same. The most important thing to do when you're speccing your champion points is to get 120 points into Unchained. So when you get CC'd, essentially you want to cast a high cost ability. What I do instinctively is cast Forward Momentum every time I break free, or I should anyways. Cast that or Vigor, because basically it's almost like a free heal. It's almost a free buff. So you kind of want to train your brain to recast that. Now, you're not always going to do that if you're pressured and so on, but it's a good thing to focus on. Am I recasting this? Do I have Unchained? Get 120 points in the middle tree first. Moving over, the Lords, you know, this 10%, this 10 points in here by directing another player, damage reduced by 15%. That's actually quite handy, especially if you have the speed reses and you're a Templar anyways. So 3 points into Expert Defender, quick recovery for a little bit more healing. It makes it worth it putting the 10 points into here. Okay, now to consumables and so forth, and what do I use? So let's go over the food first. I've been talking about food for a while, and basically the default for me is this dubious Camorian Throne. Increased stamina recovery, max stam, max health. Fantastic. Fantastic. What can I say about it? You're still getting 38k stamina on my back bar. What is it? 36, almost 37 on my front bar. So that's really quite useful. Now, Tristat, I don't use it because I'll have almost too much magic and it kind of goes to waste. So the food that I was talking about earlier that makes you really tanky is there's obviously a gold food here, increased magic, max magic, health recovery. That's great for magic builds. But the one thing, where is it, is this haunch thing. This gold food from Orsinium DLC. Max health, but look at the recovery. Health recovery, stamina, and magic. So you're not going to have, obviously, the stat pool that you would using another food. But that health recovery, when Troll King procs as an orc, yeah, you can see 448, but it goes up quite a bit, making you incredibly tanky. So if you want to play a powerful assault, Troll King, kind of like off-tank role, this is the food I would use. But otherwise, stick to this dubious Camorian thing by default. Potions are fundamentally important. I don't see people using them properly. And if you watch some of my videos, you'll hear me calling out immovables. And it's just incredible that you can get 15 seconds of CC immunity, 47 seconds of speed and stamina regen. So 45-second cooldowns. You can use these over and over and over. Now, properly, with a coordinated team, you want to time it so you have a narrow window of bursting down players. Typically 5 seconds, where within that 5 seconds, you're going to kind of front load all your buffs, front load your healing, and your damage within a small window. Then pull out, reset, so on. So when you hear me calling movables, I'm telling me and other players, or they're telling me, hey, pop this so we can go on the offensive or defensive for 15 seconds. That's how you do it. Combine this with forward momentum and the speed bonus. As an orc, I can also get away. So if our team wipes, I need to just bail, put a forward camp up. It constantly saves us from dying. I also carry along with me tri potions. Now, I almost always use these immovabilities. But there's going to be some times where I'm just getting pressured and I don't have enough, stamina to heal or something and break free. So I'll break free, pop one of these, get my magic back so I can cleanse, get me a free heal as well. Plus, hey, health recovery, that's always nice. So it's really, really nice to use that. And also there's some poisons you can use. People don't like poisons, but draining stuff from people is also very effective when you're going up against them heavy armor builds like my little healer that everyone hates. On to stone, logically speaking, it makes sense to me on this specific build to use the tower, max stamina. Pretty much other builds I would use the warrior weapon damage. If you're running in trouble with sustain, I would go with the Serpent, but max stamina scales very well with this build, specifically Power Light, that single target killer. That's what we're aiming for. Repentances, so getting more stamina back, more health to you and your allies. That's why I go with this one. Also, Lycanthropy, so Werewolf. Now, I don't use the abilities. You're not going to get any of the negative effects unless you're using the ultimate, so there's really no downside to being a werewolf. But honestly, I think Vampire might be effective. I haven't done it just because I don't really want to mess with it right now. The extra fire damage is a negative incentive, but the Vampire Undeath passive I think is still broken. So it might be useful to run it, especially if you're running high magic and you can afford the cleanses, getting fire off you. But I haven't tested it yet, so I don't want to recommend it. Racial choices. What I'll tell you about race, and I get a lot of questions about it, is being a good player is more important than picking a good race. And Orc, I think, is the strongest PvP race for me because max health, max stamina, that's great. Increased healing received by 5% and health recovery. Believe it or not, those two things are incredibly powerful. But the thing I like is increased damage on with melee attacks, like jabs and so forth. But the sprint speed and sprint cost, it seems silly, but these little things are the difference between getting away and surviving or charging in or saving your... It's just little things like this. Red Guard, fantastic for sustain. Wood Elf, also great for sustain. Even Argonian can rock a stand build. The thing I would say is pick what you like, get good at it, and don't quit. That's more important than picking a good race, honestly. People always ask me about attributes, so I'm going to talk about it. 64 into stamina. The most important thing to get to is about 24k health inside of Cyrodiil without any buffs, okay? 35k stamina or more, and then about 14 to 12,000 magic is the kind of the ideal stats that I like to go to. Stamina recovery, while this might seem low, that's not really as important because we're using heavy armor, 5 pieces. So Constitution is deceptive in that it's going to give us a lot back, plus fully charged heavy attacks as well. So recovery is kind of a deceptive stat, and heavy armor is not as important. Last thing I'll talk about is leveling real quick for those people that maybe see this build and go, oh, this looks pretty cool, let's level with it. Real quick, this sounds crazy, but what you're going to do is put one skill on each of your on your bar from each of your class skill line. What this is going to do is allow you to level up those skill lines quickly because the passives make you powerful. So Adric Spear, Biting Jab, stick it on your bar, don't move it off of there. You'll be using this the entire game. Dawn's Wrath, you're going to pick Sunfire. I didn't morph it. I just got it there until I got Backlash, morphed it into Power Assault, left it on my bar. Restoring Light. Now, the most important thing is to get Repentance, restoring aura right away. So I took this and I actually morphed it into Honor the Dead early on because basically even as a stand build, kind of tooling around, even if you have no CP, you can survive a lot of stuff. And then once you get Repentance, as long as you're killing stuff, that's your heal. You don't even need one. So I would put that on your bar, forget about it. So you have an ultimate slot around 12, put Rites of Passage on there. Once you get Repentance, drop it. Put Nova on there. Once you get Power of Light, drop it. Then put Crescent Sweep on there until all these skill lines are leveled up. The other tip I'll give you, people look at me funny when I say this, but put a two-hander and actually equip a two-hander. Use it, okay? That's your primary weapon in endgame. But also put a sword and shield on to unlock the skill line and actually literally put a dead skill here, like sword and board ability, on your bar. What this is going to allow you to do is level up your two-handed and your sword and shield at the same time. Why is that important? Because the reason is if you don't, yes, you'll have a dead skill, but at end game, you'll have to actually just hit level 50 and then go grind more zombies to actually level up the skill line. And getting this thing leveled, I mean, it can take you an hour of grinding just to be able to morph it, let alone level up to 4. So the faster you can reach end game and enjoy the content and your character, the better. So that's why I would recommend that. The priority passives, like I say, passives make you powerful. What I would do is you're going to need tons and tons of skill points to get the maximum effectiveness out of this guy. Your class-specific skill lines, take them all. Take all the passives. You might not think you'll need them. It's better to have them. You're going to need your weapons, two-handed, one-handed, and shield. Also, you're going to need armor. So heavy armor, no-brainer, take all of them because we're going to be in 5 or more. Now, some of these are 5 or more here, so like agility, but everything else, yes, even sneaking is important. Take them all. Now, racial, also important. Take all those suckers. Guild. Fighter's Guild is vitally important to your build. Take that. Mage's Guild, unless you're going to use like Mage Light for a bursting thing, I'd kind of skip it. Undaunted, amazing. Take them all. Work on leveling them. Alliance War, Assault, Support. You're going to take them all. And see, I'm a little puglet. I don't even have level 10 yet. And then, lastly, get medicinal use. Remember, those movability potions will actually last longer. So it eclipses that 45-second cooldown, making it, you can use it reliably over and over and over. So it's really important to actually level that at endgame for maximum performance. So after returning to the Elder Scrolls Online, I'm working my best to get these builds updated, but I want to play what I like, and I want to play what I'm excited about and enthusiastic about to share information with you. And what I can say is, kind of coming back to the game, I think it's improving in the fact that there's not just one go-to set. You know, proc sets like Viper and some of that crap that I hated is gone and not as effective anymore. And it's like, okay, now there's a reason to use a Master's two-hander and not a VMA one. Now there's a reason to use Bloodspawn and not just Viper and Saline. So I'm really enjoying the fact that there's 3, 5, 6, 7, 10 ways to play this that's effective. And it makes it like, okay, you can change a skill out, a piece of gear out, and it's your Templar. It's your Stamplar. So take this for whatever it's worth. I appreciate every single one of you watching. I love the Templar, and yes, I will get to other builds, but I will not sacrifice time, quality, and what I'm enthusiastic about to do so. So thank you so much for watching.